So in this model, there's always going to be some involuntarily unemployed people, right? There's going to be some involuntary unemployment, where the idea is that there are some people who would like to be working, but don't have a job. And the reason for that is that there has to be some employment rent in the model, right? And so if there were no employment rent, imagine that if you lost your job on Monday, you could start the exact same job or job with the exact same pay and employment rent on Tuesday, then there wouldn't really be any employment rent. You wouldn't care about losing your job, and therefore, in this type of model, you wouldn't give any effort. Now, that's obviously not a completely realistic way to look at the way people behave, right? Some people will provide effort no matter what. But it is reasonable to say that most people have something to lose if they lose their job. And that's why there's some involuntary unemployment. It doesn't mean that you couldn't have some sort of like government jobs program. It just means that that job that you could get from the government would have to be at less pay or at least less employment rent than the job that you lose. So we can think about things that will shift the best response curve, right? So there's going to be a number of things that could shift it. There could be different unemployment rates. There could be different unemployment benefits. So, for example, if there are higher unemployment benefits, then that increases the reservation wage. It decreases employment rent, and so it shifts the curve to the right. And that means firms are going to have to pay higher wages in order to get the same level of effort. If there's a higher unemployment rate, that means that workers are going to be unemployed for longer if they lose their job. So that increases the employment rent and shifts the best response curve to the left, right? So that we get a best response curve over here, which means that firms will be able to pay lower real wages in terms of an amount of effort. And so there's an incentive for firms to want to have lower unemployment benefits and even higher unemployment in order to keep their wage costs relatively low. So this isn't the only way to structure a firm. So another way to structure a firm is with a cooperative, which is one that is owned mostly or entirely by workers. There are also firms that aren't necessarily described as cooperatives, but might be employee owned through, for instance, an employee stock ownership plan. Although some of those plans only cover a small amount of the firm, so they don't own a large amount of the firm. But now the workers are owners, and so if the workers are owners, then they have the incentive to do what the owners want because they are the owners, and so there's less need for supervision and monitoring. Um, some arguments against cooperatives are that they might have trouble raising as much funds or being as flexible in terms of responding to market forces because now workers not only want to protect their profits, but they also want to protect their jobs, and so they might make different choices. That said, I think it's a real potential way to increase sort of equity and fairness in the workplace. So, in general, incomplete contracts occur not only in employment relationships, but in other places. And so we'll see them again when we talk about the financial markets later on this semester. So, anytime when information can't be verified, right, by both sides, when it covers uh, a longer period of time, and when there's some level of uncertainty and difficulty measuring, when there isn't a good way to enforce the contract, right? So there's no judiciary, um, then we're going to have some incomplete contracts. And so, as I said, we'll see them again in the financial sector chapter, but they occur often in economics, and it's good to keep them in mind. And so often the way we model them is with a principal agent model, where the principal is the person who wants something done, and the agent is the person who does it. And so in this case, the firm is the principal, and the worker or the manager is the agent. Um, and the agent is able to take actions, but those actions are hidden from the principal, which is why they can't be verified and why they need to provide some form of payment that provides an incentive for the agent to do what the principal wants the agent to do. And so this is also known as a hidden action problem. And this is very common in employment contracts because employers would like to be able to completely control what the employees do, but they cannot. And so there is either unverifiable information or asymmetric information about whether or not the action has been done. And that's what causes some of these problems in the employment contract.